What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another special edition of the Power Hour with Huff and Gill. I'm Huff, but I don't have my partner Gill with me, but I do have Mr. Game Day himself, Morgan Smith, with me. What's going on, Morgan?
Man, appreciate you having me on. Appreciate you being on Gameday platform today.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the opportunity. And we do have a special guest with us, none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. What's going on, Mr. Tepper? How are you today?
I'm excellent. I don't know how I feel about being described as a man, a myth, a legend. Usually, the only people who do that are law enforcement officials. So, but it's great to be here. Great to talk with you boys out there in Northeast Texas.
Well, you are a legend. I mean, hey, I got to give credit where it's due.
Well, I appreciate it. We're just trying our best here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and I'm just proud to be part of the team.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you joining us. As I said, I know you're a busy man. You're just coming in off the road from the coaching convention, right?
Yeah, sure did. We just spent the past 4 days down there in San Antonio, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and Tuesday at the THSCA Coaching School and Convention. More than 16,000 coaches this year, a record, which it felt big, and it was a big party with all the folks from all across the state kind of descending upon the Alamo City. But a great opportunity for us to chat with coaches and catch up with old friends. So it's really the true kickoff of football season in a lot of ways for us. Now it's kind of get to work time.
So every year I tell myself I'm going to go down there and I keep missing it.
You're missing out because because everyone's there and every coach is available. So we have a great opportunity just chopping it up with coaches, getting kind of those little tidbits, those little nuggets that are going to help us kind of analyze the football season. And then it's also just it's a good time. You know, I don't know if you know this, but down in San Antonio they do have liquor licenses down there, and the coaches found those out. So, but it's a great time down there, just catching up with friends and getting ready for football.
Man, I want to congratulate you. Another great edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. I still have mine from when I was in high school.
You know, I appreciate it. That's something that we hear a lot from folks is, you know, I still got that copy when I was in, and it's important for us to remember. We always keep in mind that this is the most important magazine for a lot of people. And this is something that really resonates with people. It's a touchstone in people's lives. My favorite stories are when guys come up and say, hey, I was in your magazine and my dad was in your magazine and my son is in the magazine. And that, you want to talk about the kind of thing that resonates throughout generations. It means a lot. And we know it's a burden to bear. You know, it's something we've got to hold up for Mr. Campbell, who of course passed away back in December. This is our first edition without him, but we want to do right by him. I've told people a lot. I don't actually care if you like the magazine, as long as there's a 96-year-old man in Waco who likes it. He may not be around to give us notes anymore, but we still want to make sure that we're doing right by him. So we're proud to carry the flag for Dave Campbell and to continue the work that he started back in 1960.
That's awesome, brother.
So let's go ahead and let's jump into some football. I know that's what you like to talk, and we like to talk some football too. So we're clearly in Texarkana. Texarkana Game Day is what we're on, the network we're on today. So we'll start out by talking some of the Texarkana area teams. And we'll start out with Texas High, Texarkana, Texas High, the Tigers. They're a part of District 8-5A. That's District 8-5A Division 2. And you guys have them ranked number 10 in the preseason rankings. Kind of talk about Texas High. I know they have a lot of returning talent, but they do lose a few focal pieces on their team. Derek Brown, they lose their quarterback, their leading rusher. So kind of talk about what do you expect out of Texas High this year in that district?
Yeah, you know, you kind of hit the nail on the head. This is a Texas High team that I think if you just pay attention to the headliners, you're going to think, oh, well, Coach Stanford's squad's going to take a step back. And look, guys like Derek Brown don't grow on trees. And Brayson McHenry was a real star for them. And Braylon Stewart, Michael Thomas, who's off at Lamar now. I mean, those are guys who are really important cogs to what they did last year and the success that they did have last year. But also a lot of the real nuts and bolts of the team do come back in meaningful ways. You know, the defensive line is not going anywhere. Brandon Childs is back, and he is a force up front. I figured that he's going to take a real nice step forward just because he's going to be the focal point of that defense. They feel good about, from what I understand in talking with folks around the program, they feel good about a guy like Cody Reese moving from receiver to quarterback to the full-time level. They don't feel like that's going to be that much of a step forward. We know he's got a nice target on the outside, a big target on the outside in TJ Gray to throw to. And look, I also think that pedigree goes a long way, and expectations and culture goes a long way. You know, Coach Stanford has now been there for a minute now, and he's been able to install his program and install his culture there. I think you're starting to see those fruits, you know, those trees bear fruit. This is a guy who's a program builder. He's done an outstanding job getting them to where they are, that, you know, to the point where last year's 12-win team is kind of like, okay, that's what we should do. That's not a surprise. That's the new normal. That's the new standard. Let's exceed that standard next year. And so I think that for Texas High, yeah, there are some holes to fill, especially on the defensive side. They've got a couple of pieces to replace, but I think that they deserve the benefit of the doubt, and I think that they should start the year as the favorite of District 8. I think that what they bring back and the playmakers they've got and what they've proven over the course of Coach Stanford's tenure deserves that top spot, at least to start the year.
Do you see any team possibly? I know there's a few coaching changes within the district. Got Mount Pleasant bringing in a new coach, Marshall bringing in Coach Alvarez, who's a state champion winning coach himself. Do you see any team possibly contending with Texas High in that district?
You know, you name the two that really spring to mind to me. You know, Marshall is a program that, you know, you bring in a state champion head coach, a guy who knows how to get these guys going, and a guy who I think is, you know, to borrow a phrase from Notre Dame, kind of wake up the echoes, right? You know, Marshall is a program that's got that kind of pedigree, and all you've got to do is get that train rolling in the right direction, and they're going to come. I think that they are, as far as if you're looking for a team that has the most pieces in place, it might be a team like Marshall. That's a program that I think is going to be quickly on the rise. Speaking of quickly on the rise, you know, you mentioned the new coach at Mount Pleasant, Joe Cluley, coming in from the Lubbock area, and he has assembled a fantastic staff. This is a really, really top to bottom quality coaching staff he's got out there. They are going to be in it sooner as opposed to later. I know last year's 4-6 mark is not up to the expectations of Mount Pleasant, but I think Coach Cluley is going to get that thing right, and he's going to get that thing right in a hurry. So for now, I would say that it's Texas High is the favorite. Those two are probably next. The sleeper in this district, I think, is Nacogdoches. This is a Nacogdoches team that last year took some lumps, made it into the playoffs, which I think was really important for them just to get that playoff experience, even though they came up short in the first round in Montgomery. But this is a program that brings back a ton of talent from last year's team. I think 8 starters on each side of the ball. From an experience perspective, it wouldn't be a surprise to them for them to play party crasher. I don't know if they're quite up to that district championship level, but as far as finishing second or third in that district, it wouldn't be a surprise for me to see Nacogdoches make that run. So that's how I like it for now. But, you know, they're going to lace them up, and these teams have a history of making us look silly.
Yeah, we're going to find out a lot about Texas High right off the bat, I think. You know, playing Frisco Lone Star at Cowboy Stadium, that's a great environment, obviously. I don't think any of these kids have played in Cowboy. Well, obviously, they haven't played in Cowboy Stadium or the Star. But, man, Frisco Lone Star is going to be a tough one right off the bat. We'll learn a lot quick.
Yeah, Frisco Lone Star is a quality program that you know needs no introduction at this point. They've played for state championships. They are going to be with a new quarterback, Garrett Rangel, who was the quarterback for them for what seems like a million years. Has finally graduated and gone off to Oklahoma State. But this is a program there at Frisco Lone Star that just reloads. And I think you're right. I think going out there for Texas High to get that big game, big atmosphere experience right out of the chute is going to pay dividends for them, because those are the types of games they want to play in. They want to play quality down the road. Eventually, they want to play elite programs on the big stage. That's the goal. And so for Coach Stanford, I think that's a little bit of savvy scheduling there to get them right out of the chute. And you know, one of those things that even if they lose, you can say, guys, there's a lot to gain from this opportunity. There's a lot to gain there. So I think it's a great way to open the season, and a good way for both. From my perspective, you know, that's a great litmus test for both. I think both are going to test each other in a very interesting way. We're going to get a good look at what this new Texas High defense is going to look like up against what typically is a pretty high-powered offense, and furthermore, we're going to get to know what are the new pieces in this Frisco Lone Star offense. So a lot to glean from this Week 1 matchup.
Yeah, Frisco Lone Star as number 2 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. New quarterback at all, number 2?
Yeah, Frisco Lone Star is a program that that we feel pretty good about there at the 5A Division I level. We got the number 5, I want to say. We got them in the top 5.
Okay.
Even replacing the quarterback, but they do bring back 6 starters on defense, which is an important part of it. And what I really like about this team is they're going to be really fast. They're going to have some depth at the skill position spots. They're going to have team speed. And that's the kind of thing that, from a Texas High perspective, you want to see early, because that's the kind of speed you're going to have to match up with deep in the playoffs. The question for Frisco Lone Star is going to be quarterback, and the question for Frisco Lone Star is going to be on the offensive line. And so if the Texas High defensive line can reload in the way that we think they can, then they could make it a long day for the new Frisco Lone Star quarterback.
Sure. Let's switch it over to 7-4A. You got people hot down here in East Texas. Carthage, I think we can all agree, even though Carthage has lost quite a bit, I mean, I can agree they still deserve to be number 1. But the big gripe here is, how's Gilmer ahead of PG by 3 spots?
Yeah, and it's a fair question. And I think that it's one of those things that reasonable people can disagree. And when you take a look at the top 25 or the rankings that we've got, I would just say that the top 7, I'd probably put a cutoff between about Wimberley and Glen Rose, although I think Wimberley had a loss on their quarterbacks at the quarterback situation. Maybe just 6 with Cuero are a lot closer than they have been in quite some time. And so if you want to put them in a hat and pull them out in any particular way, I wouldn't necessarily disagree. Now, part of that is that this is a Gilmer program that has just, it's played deeper. They're a reigning state runner-up from a year ago. They do have to find a new quarterback. Brandon Tennyson's not walking through that door anymore. That said, at Gilmer, they tend to have a tree out there that they go and pluck a quarterback. For Pleasant Grove, and I had a conversation with Josh Gibson at coaching school this past week, and we talked about it because I kept saying during the course of their playoff run last year that everyone was making a big mistake by letting them hang around, that they were going to bank this experience, because last year was not that they're not trying to win. Last year was never the year for Pleasant Grove. They weren't going to win a state championship last year. They were too young. They were fielding freshmen and sophomores everywhere. They were never going to do that. Now those guys are sophomores, juniors, and some of them seniors, and they've got that big game experience. They have basically an extra month of practice. There is a chance. One of the things that I talked with him about is there is a feeling, perhaps, that this PG team could be like that first state championship PG team, which, if you remember back to, felt like they were a year early then. When they won that first state championship with Ben Harmon at quarterback and that remarkable run to a title, the upset win over West Orange Stark, you may remember that the talk all along was like, well, if it's not this year, then it'll be next year. Well, then it ended up being that year. For PG, it wouldn't be a surprise if they were to make that run. I think that what that does, I think Gilmer gets the pedigree bump simply because of what they've done most recently. The teams between them in Wichita Falls, Hershey, and West Orange Stark. Hershey, I've got some questions with, only because the talent I have no questions with. They do have a coaching change going on right now. Same thing with West Orange Stark. Cornell Thompson's out. Hiawatha Hickman is in. There's some maneuverability there. I would say, heck, Cuero's got a new coach too. So I would look at this and say that the top 6 feel a lot closer than they have in past years. If you want to put PG up as high as number 2, I could certainly get on board with that. We're going, a lot of what we do is based on most of what we saw last year, and there's not some sort of enormous experience gap between Pleasant Grove and Gilmer. This is a team that brings back 11 starters versus, I think, 13 for Pleasant Grove. So that's a huge difference. It's reasonable. It's one of those reasonable people can disagree type situations. And the good thing is that it'll all sort itself out. And it wouldn't be a surprise. I'll just say right now, it wouldn't be a surprise if these two teams play each other twice this season, simply because that region feels like, outside of Carthage, it's certainly going to go through District 7.
Yeah. How do you see this district playing out, though? I mean, what's your prediction on the district?
That was my question too.
Yeah. So ultimately, a lot of it's going to come down. A lot of it's going to come down to PG and Gilmer, and what happens whenever they meet up. I don't actually have the schedule in front of them. Where is that game?
It's at PG.
It's at PG. Well, that certainly helps Josh Gibson's squad. The other thing about PG, though, is they play a brutal non-district schedule that's going to get them very right. It would not be a surprise, really and truly. It would not be a surprise if they start the year like 2-3 or something like that, simply because the schedule they play is so, and that would have really no measurement on them. They could be one of those teams that just like that we're talking about, and then all of a sudden, because we do the rankings, we're going to hear, why do you have a 3-loss team in the top 10? Well, because they're really good. They're a top 8 team, even though they've got the 3 losses. A lot of it comes down to the spoiler here, I think, could be Liberty ILO. Liberty ILO is a really interesting squad this year. I think they're going to have their skill positions going to be on par with a lot of teams in this district. Maybe outside of a Gilmer type with guys like Rohan Llewellyn. They've got experience. Questions are going to be on the offensive line for Liberty ILO, but I think if they can solve those questions up front, they're going to have an opportunity to really make a run. Pittsburgh's in that mix as well. Pittsburgh's a strange team because Pittsburgh got a lot better as the season went on last year. They're one of those teams that I think their record is not indicative of how good they were, but they are in almost an entire rebuild on the defensive side. I think they bring back just 2 starters on defense. I mean, they get really hit hard by graduation. They're a bit of a wild card here. How quickly can they reload? If they do that, then they're comfortably a playoff team, in my opinion. But it's also at the 4A Division II level, you're talking about not really knowing exactly who's walking through the door at any particular time. So those are my top 4 right now: Gilmer and Pleasant Grove in some order, and then probably Pittsburgh and Liberty ILO in some order. Maybe Spring Hill gets into the mix. They're going to be big and physical, but I need to see if they're going to have the kind of skill position guys that can match up in this kind of high-powered district.
So, when playoffs hit, we get to round 3, round 4. Like you said, PG's probably got to play Gilmer twice. And then one of them are going to play Carthage. Are we going to see the state champion out of this region?
I think that's probably the safe pick right now, the safest pick. When you take a look at the way that the power nexus is, I think no doubt in Region 3. Or Region 2 rather, simply because, with Carthage, whenever the realignment came out and Carthage slides from District 10 to District 8, that's one of those things that if you are just John Q fan and you show up on Friday night and you don't necessarily swim in the soup like we do, it may just be like, oh, okay, they changed districts from District 10 to District 8. That seems neat. But for us, like, alarm bells are going off. And they're going, guys, they went from the NFC to the AFC is what they did. They flipped sides of the bracket. And so there's no doubt, in my opinion, that the power nexus of Division 2 is there in Region 2. And what they've been able to do, whether you're talking about Carthage, Gilmer, Pleasant Grove, those types of things. I would even throw as a sleeper, I think Aubrey is going to be pretty good as well, but they are probably, I think, a little bit down from where those other 3 contenders are. I think right now, if you were just to say which region it'll come from, the safe pick is probably from Region 2. But that said, they're going to have to get through Region 1. That could be a team like Glen Rose, which is going to have a high-powered offense. And then whoever they see in a title game is not going to let, or Wichita Falls Hershey is going to be in that mix as we mentioned. And then title game, West Orange Stark. You talk about pedigree there, Cuero. This could be a really good Cuero team if they can figure things out. If they can kind of adjust to the new coaching staff as quickly as possible. Silsby is going to be very dangerous as well. Geronimo Navarro. There's going to be 4A Division 2 is pretty strong wherever you look, but there's no place that's stronger than Region 2. And so they're going to beat each other up, and only one can come out of there. At that point, that team is going to be, in my opinion, the prohibitive favorite to win a state championship.
Yeah, I think my main thing, like everybody else, I can't believe they're in the same region. But the second part of that was, man, it almost feels like you're deciding a state championship really early. And you could have a very lopsided state championship game, which we've seen in the past with.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a surprise, but at the same time, and I hope there are no Gilmer fans listening because I'm going to bring up the sore subject. We maybe thought the same thing last year entering the state championship game whenever China Spring knocked out Carthage. And we were thinking, okay, here comes China Spring, some other team from, Region 3, whatever. Where are they even? Waco area, sure, whatever. And they go there, and Gilmer, locked and loaded and rolling offense is going great. And then suddenly China Spring is this team of destiny. So you're right, like, overwhelmingly from the preseason perspective, Region 2 is where the power lies. But all it takes is one particular team, and especially, I'll just throw this out there, particularly if you're looking for a team, let's just say it is that the Region 2 team beats Hershey or Aubrey or somebody, or in Region, or Glen Rose in Region 1 in the semifinals. They could see a team like West Orange Stark. And West Orange Stark is a team that that plays with great defense, that blue link defense. Could they slow down kind of the speed and physicality that you tend to see from there? Or, and again, I don't want to bring up, sore subject to our friends at Pleasant Grove, they see a team like Cuero. Perhaps you've heard of them. Perhaps you remember the last time they're on the state championship stage. Now, Jordan Whittington's not walking through that door, but at the same time,
I remember Whittington for sure. I can't name anybody else.
Yeah, but all you have to do is have that one breakout player, that one breakout team, and suddenly it turns it on its head. So I tend to agree with you that I think that the depth there in Region 2 is going to be the strength, but you can also have a team that is just so overwhelmingly better than their region in Region 3 or Region 4 that could just blow through, get to a state championship game, and suddenly then have to match up with a team like from Carthage or Gilmer or PG that could give them a run, certainly.
Yeah. Man, let's switch it over. Let's unless you got something else off.
No, I don't at all. I was about to say the same thing. I'm sure you want to hit this Longview.
District 7 5A, man. I'm from Longview. We have Longview game day down there. Really, really excited. I was expecting Longview to be ranked really high, the number 1 coming out. I mean, it's awesome. Tell us a little bit about that particular ranking.
Well, I can tell you one person who doesn't like it is John.
I know
King.
that.
I saw him in San Antonio this weekend, and I saw him. We were at an establishment, and I haven't seen him. I thought I was going to see him at 7-on-7, and I didn't, which is strange because I figured he would be there trying to see if they could run power at 7-on-7. In any case, I saw him in San Antonio, and he looked at me, and then he approached me, and he showed me one of his fingers. I can't say on a family show which one of it was. He's not happy with me being number 1. But I also think that when you take a look at this program and you take a look at this team, I think they've got to be number 1. I think when you take a look at what they've got, I've said this in another place, but I'll say it again. This is one of those Longview teams that is going to be good at all the Longview stuff. They're going to be physical. They're going to be fast defensively. They're going to be good up front. They're going to run the ball well. But they're also going to have the added element of having a guy like Jalen Hale on the outside, having a bona fide blue chip 4 to 5 star receiver out there that they can throw to. This feels like a souped up version of a kind of a traditional Longview team. It's like you took a classic car and you threw a Hemi in it. It's like a really, really impressive squad. The collection of talent they've got there is impressive. The other thing that's interesting to me about Longview is when realignment came out, they stick in Region 2. But Region 2, if you remember the last couple of years, Region 2 was a real wood chipper. I mean, it was every great team was in there, whether it was the Longviews or the Denton Ryans or the College Stations or the Frisco Lone Stars or all of these teams from Region 2. Highland Park was in there. Well, now Highland Park moves to 6A. They moved Denton Ryan to Region 1. They flipped College Station to Region 3. Now, they add in a team like Crosby into Region 3, or Region 2, rather. But it also clears out a little bit that it's not as brutal of a region as it was going to be. Now, make no mistake, they're going to have to earn their way there. But I think that the path opened up for them a little bit more. They're still going to have to beat outstanding teams to get there. But you look at this Longview team, and a lot of things feel like they're falling into place for John King's squad, whether he likes me to say that or not.
Yeah. Watching 4A football and 5A football here in Texarkana, it was a big jump from a 4A game to watching Longview on a Friday night last year, especially right off the bat, that Denton Ryan game, which was on the NFL Network. It wasn't a great game. It wasn't their best game, to say the least. To come back in the playoffs and that game be winnable for them, I mean, we're talking I can't remember that first game, at 45 point loss to one possession away from winning that football game and having a chance to do it. I think they returned 8, maybe 9 starters on defense. Most of those starters were sophomores last year. Man, I'm ecstatic. I'm really looking forward for this season for the Lobos. I'm excited to see Jalen Hale is one of the best wide receivers I've seen play in person in a long, long time. With the ball in his hand, I mean, he's amazing. Going up and getting the ball, it seems like he's mossing kids every time he makes a catch. But with Taylor Tatum, the kind of season he can probably have and will have, I mean, it, like you said, it's like putting a Hemi in it. It's going to be unbelievable this year.
If they stay healthy, look, we can say that for, we say that for the Dallas Cowboys, we say it for any football team that's ever existed. But if they stay healthy, the talent and the top end talent there is really, really special and has an opportunity to be make Longview history and be one of the best teams in Longview history. And I know what I'm saying when I say that. This is a really, really talented bunch, and I think they've got an opportunity to be really special.
Yeah, the thing with Longview, they have the best fans in the state, but they expect a lot. And a number one ranking, that's going to put a lot of expectations on the table for the coaching staff and these kids. And I'm telling you, this the fan base is best in state. But man, they are
well, and that's probably why
Coach
King was. That's probably why Coach King was not particularly pleased with the number one ranking. But at the same time, and I'll say that because Coach King's a friend. He's been a longtime friend of Dave Campbell's Texas football, and I know he's just giving us guff. But at the same time, like you talk with these assistants, and you talk with Coach King himself, and eventually, after talking with them for a while, they'll be like, "Yeah, we think we're going to be pretty good." And when Longview folks are saying that, when they think they're saying they're pretty good, I've learned to speak Longview a little bit. That means they're going to be potentially elite. There are programs out there that I don't want to accuse them of sandbagging, but they like to keep their cards close to the chest. Mm-hmm. Longview tends to be a team that they don't like to puff out their chest unless they know they got something. So when I'm hearing from Longview assistants, they're going, "We got a shot." Then at that point, that's when we start thinking around here, they are going to be potentially really special, and they know it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really, really looking forward to this season for them. Man, while we got you, of course, you obviously think Longview's going to win that district and go on to play for state championship. Which, if they do you think we're going to see the 50, 60,000 people like we did last time?
It's interesting, right? Because like you go back to 2018, and it was the first time that they had been back to the title game in quite a while. And then there was that pent up kind of, demand there, let's say, for Longview. The interesting thing for them, let me think this through. Now, so on one hand, it wouldn't be the first time. It would not be the first time they were there. Mm-hmm. But here's the counterpoint. The counterpoint is, with the schedule the way it's going to be, it would be again on the Saturday morning. They'll play on Saturday morning again in 5A Division 1. They play Saturday morning because it plays Division 2 first and then Division 1 on the even number years. So it'd be a Saturday morning, so everybody could come on out there from Gregg County and get out there early for the game. So the timing would work out well. I think you could see a really big crowd once again from them. And depending on who they see there, I mean, they would need some help there. It's as deep as Longview rolls. If they're playing against nobody on the other side, they're not gonna, it's not gonna break any sort of records. But they could see a team, College Station, still a young program, it'd be hard for them to draw a big crowd. But if it's A&M Consolidated, who we think is going to be really good, that's a much more kind of established program with bigger fan base. That could be a team that could draw them out. If they could have my dream, if I'm just editorializing. What I would love to see, and it would be out of the ordinary. If you want to talk about breaking records, if they were to see a team from the Rio Grande Valley like Edinburgh Vela in a title game, which is not outside the realm of possibility. I'm just throwing out there that Region 4 is there for the taking, and I'm just saying that then whatever. All let's say, if they do that, we'll have 60,000 people there. If it's Longview and Edinburgh Vela, we'll have 60,000. They'll have to build a new deck to open up there. I mean, it'll be nuts there. But for me, I think we'll certainly. I have no concerns about Lobo Nation rolling out to AT&T Stadium if it comes to that. I have no doubts about Lobo Nation rolling to the moon if they're playing on the moon. Like, they'll just find a way to get there. They'll just tailgate, I guess, out there on the lunar crater.
Well, man, the state championship week, that the UIL and Dave Campbell puts on, as well as Fox Sports. Is Fox Sports or Bally's?
Bally. I'm supposed to correct you because I have to put $1 in the swear jar anytime I call it Fox. So it's Bally.
Okay.
Morgan got to pay that.
There you go.
Yeah, man, right. It is it's awesome. I mean, every year, luckily the last few years there's been someone there we've been able to cover. But man, it's unbelievable. The amount of I know people that they'll get there on Wednesday and they'll literally just go to every single football game. And I don't think I'm going to miss it the rest of my life as long as it's held there.
I tell people all the time that it should be on your sports bucket list. It should be on your list. I don't even care if you don't know high school football. If you're just some guy who moved here from Delaware and you want to just have a great sports experience, just go here because you'll never see anything like it. And the production that the UIL puts on, and then the production that Valley Sports Southwest puts on. I mean, they say it in our meetings. They say this is our Super Bowl. Like, we treat it like the Super Bowl. I mean, this is just me, and I'm a high school football nerd. You have Skycam on a 6-man game. Like, that's the coolest thing in the world. That's all I've ever wanted in life is on a 3A Division II state championship game, having like the Skycam coming down behind the quarterback. That thing's so cool. And I don't know. I think it's really cool, and I'm proud to be a part of not only Dave Campbell's Texas football, but also Valley Sports Southwest, simply because it's people who are passionate about high school football, people who want to cover it the way that Texans kind of deserve to have it covered.
Well, keep it kind of on that same thing. Let's talk about the app. I saw the new rollout.
Been a lot of talk about that app.
Yeah. So is this one the one?
This
Are we
is
going
the
to end
one.
up with the other one?
Don't worry. Listen, I'm here to tell you we have ironed out the bugs. Last year we had early going. We had some people who were very mad, and understandably so, because the app we bit off more than we could chew. We tried to do more than we could right away. We've basically kept the guts of the app, and it's the same app, but we've just kind of put a fresh coat of paint on it. That's really all it is. It's still going to work. It will get you the scores on Friday night, because trust me, I don't want to see your tweets. I don't want to get your phone calls. I'll tell you, I'll tattle on him. Do you know who the person who was blowing up my phone that first week when the app wasn't working was now Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire. Joey McGuire would not leave me alone like that week. He's like, app's not working. Fix my app, Tepper. Fix my app. I'm like, I can't help you. I'm doing 6 hours of live television at the moment, coach. But he was very upset. There are a lot of people who are understandably very upset. We have ironed out the kinks. We are very confident this thing is going to get you the scores that you need and be what you want it to be on a Friday night, what Texas high school football fans deserve on a Friday night. We learned our lesson. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's just got to work, and we're confident that it's going to work.
So talk about the significance of the cover of the magazine this year. Well, you got two different covers clearly, but the one with Coach McGuire, and then you got Coach Jeff Traylor as well. Kind of talk about that, the significance of that.
Yeah, we when we put together the cover of Dave Campbell's Texas football, it's the biggest decision we make every year, because we've got to own it. We're gonna wear this forever. And if we put out a dud, then it just goes in the history books. I've said before, but I'm envious of Sports Illustrated, because Sports Illustrated, if they put out a bad cover, they just get to do another one next week. Yeah. Like, we got to live with it for a year. Yeah. And so, we come together in February, and we try to discuss what are the biggest, most compelling stories in Texas entering the 2022 season. And one, we had a couple of different really good ideas. One that kept coming to mind was, now that Joey McGuire is there at Texas Tech, and you've got the success that Jeff Traylor's having there at UTSA, they are in many ways obviously deserving of being on the cover by themselves, but also what they represent in being Texas high school football coaches that are indicative of and emblematic of how college football now views Texas high school football coaches. Because, we have known for a long time that Texas high school football coaches know ball. These guys are really smart. They understand football. But now I think college football is starting to realize, all right, these guys know what they're doing. They're not just high school coaches, so to speak. And they know how to build cultures. They know, and furthermore, they know how to put together authentic relationships and authentic relationships on the recruiting trail. Both Jeff Traylor and Joey McGuire have said that the lifeblood of their existence is relationships. They go out there and they've got these relationships with high school football coaches, and that is going to help them bring in talent to their programs. And so far, you look at what's happening. UTSA won the conference championship last year. Texas Tech's like a top 10 recruiting class right now. Seems to be working. And so we wanted to make sure we celebrated that. And furthermore, there's really nothing that's more on brand for us than that, right? You talk about the mix between college football and high school football. That's what we're all about. And so we were thrilled to put them on the cover. thrilled to get those two jokers together in Brownwood for a cover shoot. We went out to Underwood's Cafe in Brownwood before and had dinner. And in the most East Texas thing I've ever seen, Jeff Traylor got his chicken fry with the gravy and then ketchup all over the top of it. And
Wow.
and he was like, this is East Texas. Y'all are eating it wrong and stuff. So I was like, man, Coach, you can take the man out of East Texas. You cannot take the East Texas out of the man, though. He is as true blue East Texas as it gets. So, but it was a great opportunity to put him on the cover, and we're really proud of him.
I did see.
Hey, Tep,
go ahead, Morgan. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask you, will we ever see Dave Campbell's get into, the recruiting, like the spring recruiting we see that's getting so big? Will we ever be like just a one-stop shop?
We're trying to get in there. We've got a great recruiting analyst named Greg Powers that does stuff for us, and we're trying to kind of get into that space. But we're trying to do it authentically, and we're trying to do it in a way that's right for us. I think anybody could go out there and write. Not anybody. I don't want to. I've got a lot of friends in the recruiting world, so I don't want to diminish them. But going out there and writing about Arch Manning committing to Texas is a big deal. But also, that's not authentically us. I mean, he's a kid from out of state. What we were trying to do is make sure that we are giving it a high school football first perspective and saying, here are the guys. Here is not only is he a great recruit, but he also is helping his high school football team succeed. And so we're trying to find that way to be authentically Dave Campbell's in our recruiting coverage. And maybe that means celebrating a kid who picks up a Stephen F. Austin offer, because that's a huge deal for him. And he's going to help out Stephen F. Austin in a big way.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So much of the recruiting coverage, in my opinion, if I may editorialize, Axe and Jacks, a lot of the recruiting coverage is up near the top. Who's got the number one recruiting class in the state? Where's the number 3 prospect in the nation going? Things like that. But recruiting is so deep and dense, and especially here in the state of Texas, it's so wide ranging that we want to make sure we're doing it in a way that reflects that, because we've always tried to be very inclusive, tried to be very all-encompassing of what's going on in the state of Texas. And so we are getting into that world. We put out a recruiting edition every year in the fall or in the winter that kind of profiles prospects from across the state. That's for us the best way that we can do recruiting, and we want to continue to have our footprint there, because we know that that's such a huge part of people's football consumption, and we want to be, as you said, the one-stop shop for football in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be great. You see, especially in Texarkana, the talent we've had come through here recently. I think one of them decided to stay in the state of Texas. Clayton's at Oklahoma, Landon's at Arkansas now, and we're kind of looking at some of these deals like, man, Dave Campbell's, if they were, it's became such a big deal. Everybody, you get an offer, everybody's tagging this and that. I feel like Dave Campbell could have some influence over keeping a kid in state, and I think all Texans would love it.
Are you saying that you're a Texas fan?
I mean, whatever. But they,
expose him.
Yeah,
we need Jalen Hill at Texas is what we need.
I do got a question real quick, Mr. Tepper. It goes along the what we're talking about. So I did see at the coaching convention with the director of the UIL, there was a discussion about the NIL affecting high school athletes here in the state of Texas. What's your outlook on that? Do you see that being an issue or not, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because NIL is legal or allowed in a lot of other schools, or a lot of other states rather, but presently in the state of Texas, high school athletes, I should say, cannot profit off of their name, image, and likeness. My read on the situation is that the UIL would prefer not to be like that until the coaches say they want it. And coaches have generally said, no, we don't want that to be a distraction. We don't want that to be out there. Now, look, is there a cost to that? Maybe. What if the number 1 quarterback in the state decides, you know what, I want to go make some NIL money. I'm going to go and I'm going to transfer to Louisiana, or I'm going to transfer to Georgia, so I can do that. Or you get a Quinn Ewers situation where he decides, I'm going to reclassify. I'm going to go to Ohio State because I know I can make a couple $1 million doing that. There could be a cost down the road. For now, my read on the situation is that the UIL and kind of at the behest of the coaches still feel like that cost is not necessarily so high that they want to open the floodgates for NIL. I also think that maybe they're being a little bit cautious with it, knowing that perhaps at some point there could be there could be more regulations coming down on NIL, which could maybe give them a framework for installing it. So I think they want to be a little bit of wait and see situation there. And so I think that there's at least there's a smart move there in holding off and letting others take it, maybe tame the Wild West a little bit, so to speak, before we get into that.
Yeah, I think it's just a slippery road in high school. I think
leave it alone.
there'd be a huge gaps in the have and have nots.
Yeah.
If it's anything like college is going.
Yeah, but that's the way of the world, man. That's the way that that's the way
UIL
the football
would have their hands full.
The toothpaste is out of that tube right now. And so I think for the UIL and for Texas high school football, they'd like to keep it in the tube as much as possible. But how long can they hold out? They can hold out at least for, I would say, a couple of years, and then they'll probably have to reevaluate exactly how things are looking.
Just have to ask. You never know.
Good question. Well, and it's funny when we were down there at the coaching convention, and they have an FBS coaches panel. They have all 12 of the FBS coaches in the state of Texas up there on a panel. So you've got Steve Sarkisian sitting next to Jimbo Fisher, right? You've got those photos, which are so fun to see. But from what I understand, they had like a list of questions they wanted to ask the coaches, and they more or less just kind of jumbled them up. And so the guy who got the NIL question was, I'm not kidding, Rice coach Mike Bloomgren. And Mike Bloomgren's a great guy, and Rice is an outstanding institution. And I believe his response, I asked him about it. I think his response was like, I feel like there's a couple other people up on this stage who may be more qualified
down the road,
to answer an NIL question than me, the head coach of the Rice Owls. So that was a bit funny, but proof that it's kind of on the tip of everybody's tongue these days.
Yeah. Well, Huffman, you got anything for us?
No, go to texasfootball.com. I'm supposed to tell you to do that. Yeah, we are mere weeks away, believe it or not. I've whenever I get back from coaching school, I kind of have to go to my wife and tell her, hey, listen, it's go time now. So remember this face. It'll be back at Christmas, but yeah, it's a fun time of year because it's because there's people across the state of Texas are so passionate about high school football. And so for me to be the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football is every day I wake up thankful. I tell people all my bad days at work involve football. It's a pretty good life to lead, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Well, if
June, July for me are just it's horrible. Just waiting on football to come around.
Yeah, that's you're kind of staring out the window. Just waiting for it, but I promise you, it's right around the corner, and we're really excited about it.
If you're ever in the area, we'll be waiting on you, Mr. Tep.
Well, and I've said this, like I'd love to go to more games on Friday night. One of the worst things about my job is that on Friday nights I'm kind of chained to the Valley Sports Southwest desk there at the studios in Irving, and so I'm there for I'm on the air from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. right for Football Friday, and then to High School Scoreboard Live. So like everyone's like, hey, Tepper, we want you to come out to a game. I'm like, well, it's got to be on a Thursday, because Thursday or maybe a Saturday, if I can talk my wife into letting me out on a Saturday. So it's it's tough, but the good thing is that now for me, like the streaming, being able to stream games like on Texarkana Gameday and things like that, that's so helpful for me because I get to see so many different football games across the state that I otherwise wouldn't get to see. So I'd love to be out there. I'd love to go out there to Texarkana. Just dial up the Greg Tepper Thursday Classic, and then I'll be out there.
All right. Well, if y'all ever need any of our film for the show, just let me know. I'd love to be on it.
All right. Don't write checks you don't intend on cashing. I'm just letting you know.
All you gotta do is ask. We want to give the kids as much exposure as possible.
Well, and let me just say, you guys do a terrific job. You guys are a first-class organization there at Texarkana Gameday. That we really appreciate what you guys do there in Longview as well. And it's really been fun to see you guys grow and blossom there. And I am drawn to people who are passionate about high school sports and high school football in particular, and it's been clear from day one that you guys are passionate about high school football, and so hope you guys know that what you do doesn't go unnoticed by nerds like me.
Thank you.
Awesome. We appreciate you, Mr. Tepper.
Hey, thanks for having me on, boys.
All right, brother. Thanks for being on.